Naughty by Nature, 1993. It's been a while. I've been a fan of Naughty by Nature since day one. No, I didn't listen to the 1998 album Independent Leaders, but they were going by the new style, so technically I've been a fan of Naughty by Nature since their first album as Naughty by Nature. OPP was inescapable, but it was Ghetto Bastard, aka Everything's Gonna Be Alright, that really made me a fan. And when I heard Uptown Anthem, which wasn't on the original album and was only available on the Juice soundtrack, I was done. Treach was the greatest MC on the planet. It's always baffled me that he isn't mentioned in more GOAT conversations. Aside from Eminem, not many people cite him as an influence. It's not like he's an obscure artist. They had some of the biggest hits on the planet, but maybe that's why he's not mentioned. If all you remember are the hooks from OPP and Hip Hop Parade, you might forget that those verses are densely packed with clever wordplay, double entendres, and tongue twisters. And if you don't believe me, pick those songs for karaoke night and you'll remember real quick. When I read the track list for the 1991 self-titled album, I remember most of those songs, but when I look back at the track listing for 1993, I draw a blank, which is weird because I remember buying this cassette and playing it all the time. So let's see if I can jog my memory. So let's talk about this album cover. I expect this pose from a 15-year-old boy. Treach was 23 at the time. This has got to be one of the most childish album covers I've ever seen. I guess that's why Eminem likes him. The album starts out with the pitched down vocals of Vinny introducing the members of Naughty by Nature, in case you forgot. It kind of reminds me of Dr. Travis from There's a Dark Side, which came a few years later. Vinny refers to himself as Naughty Boy number 2, so basically he's admitting that he's a sidekick, which is something I've never heard a sidekick admit. The song eventually starts and Treach's flow is just as sharp as I remember. Next we have the biggest singer from the album, Hip Hop Parade. And before we talk about Treach, I want to say that Vinny has some bars on this one. You drew a picture of my morning but you couldn't make my day is a great way to start out the track, but your funny flow is foreign and the green card on the way, priceless. You would think from the title of the song and the chorus that the song would be a celebration of hip hop, with him talking about his influences or how great it is to be a part of the culture. But Treach uses most of his verse to rehash what he talked about on OPP, and immediately after that he tells you how much he loves and respects black women. In the second verse, he disses whack rappers for most of the running time, and in the last 4 bars, he mentions some rappers he likes and says he loves hip-hop. And that's the genius of Naughty by Nature. They wrote a 4-minute song called Hip Hop Parade, where only 4 bars of the song are dedicated to the celebration of hip-hop. And I don't think anyone noticed, or cared. I know I didn't. There's a part in the music video for the song that always went right over my head. It's the part where there's a woman laying on the bed watching an old Naughty by Nature video. Then she gets up and takes off her panties and washes them in the sink. Watching that as a kid, I had no idea what was happening. Heavy D gives one of his best performances ever on Ready for Them. Them trading bars back and forth is pretty magical. And my favorite line, Treach when he says, "I go all out, fuck, just call me Exit." I remember Take It to Your Face from the basketball montage in Above the Rim, and that's about all this song is good for. Daddy Was a Street Corner has a minute-long intro skit that I have to say is acted pretty well, but the song doesn't feel as personal as Ghetto Bastard, so it kind of falls short. My favorite line from this one, "So on Father's Day I take a rag and shine up the street sign." On the previous episode, I talked about Queen Latifah's album Black Rain and how the song I Can't Understand was a response to Roxanne Shantae's Big Mama. Well, on this album, the song The Hood Comes First is also a response to Big Mama. It's pretty clear that it's nothing personal, he's just showing that he has Queen Latifah's back. What I didn't know at the time was that Roxanne Shantae didn't write Big Mama. It was written by Juice Crew alumni Granddaddy IU. I only know this because Treach says the line, "I owe you, drop the O, drop the whole sugar-free flow. You wanna write a diss, should've made it so we never know." I couldn't think of anyone else he could be talking about other than Granddaddy IU, but I had no idea. I did some research and sure enough, he was a ghostwriter for Roxanne Shantae and Biz Markie. For Granddaddy IU, this also seems to be nothing personal. They asked him to write a song, they gave him a check. That's it. This beef seems to be about nothing, so I'm glad it didn't escalate into anything more than this. The Only Ones has probably the worst hook on the album, and seeing as Naughty by Nature is usually exceptional at coming up with catchy hooks, that makes it even worse. The second singer from the album it's on didn't do as well as Hip Hop Parade, but nothing could do as well as Hip Hop Parade. It had an incredibly long intro skit, and I guess it's cool that they're trying to let us in on the production process, but
It's a little unnecessary. For some reason, Vinny disses Sir Mix a lot. I guess he didn't appreciate the message of Baby Got Back. On Cruddy Click, Tretch seems to be addressing the allegations from fellow New Jersey producer Tony D. According to Tony D, the group stole the beat for OPP from him. They eventually settled out of court, but Tretch does not seem happy about it. Knock 'Em Out the Box is pretty much an excuse for him to put on his little brother's group Rotten Rascals. It's fine. I love everything about Hot Potato featuring Freddie Fox except the childish hook, but the song is worth it just for the line, "You couldn't be alright if I erased your left side." Sleeping on Jersey featuring Queen Latifah was always one of my favorite songs from this album. How Do I Feel About You? Hawk 2 is one of my favorite lines from this song, and apparently this one and a bunch of other lines were directed at Twista because he thought that Twista was stealing his style, which never made sense to me because Twista raps so much faster than Tretch. Twista eventually released his own diss track entitled Suicide, where he actually does copy Tretch's style and he uses it against him. It's pretty great. But back to Sleeping on Jersey, one of my favorite songs from the album. Written on Your Kitten is the third and final single from the album. Naughty by Nature produced the album version, but the single version was produced by QD3, and in my opinion, the single version is the superior version. It just sounds smoother, which is probably the goal when you're making a song about sex. Unfortunately, this was the least successful single from the album. There's always been one lyric in the song that I can never wrap my head around, and it goes, "I like my pussycat deep, so if she's tired to sleep, I have a place to soak my feet." Is he saying that he wants his girl's vagina to be so big that he can fit both his feet inside? Also, does he only plan on doing this while she's asleep? Listen, I'm not trying to kink shame anyone. In the words of Shock G, do what you like. But this seems a bit much. The album ends with Sleepwalking 2, a continuation of Thanks for Sleepwalking from the previous album. Both songs follow the same format in that there are two verses where Tretch talks about girls he thought were down to clown until they got to his room and they changed their minds. And then they both end with a few minutes of shout-outs. And I'm starting to realize that this has always been the MO of Naughty by Nature. Throughout this album and their careers, they always take two ideas that have nothing to do with each other and put them side by side. Both ideas are given the same amount of weight, and therefore you never really notice the difference. It's genius. Not as much as I thought. There are songs that I'm sad that I forgot, like Ready for Them and Hot Potato. There are also songs that I'm glad I forgot about, like The Only Ones. This album isn't as strong as the 1991 album, but it's solid. So when's the last time you heard 1993? Are you still bumping it to this day? I'm going to keep revisiting albums until I run out. Until then, I am Free Tillman, the only guy on the internet that doesn't know everything.